this presentation is going to be really a discussion, so throw questions at us, stop us. It's a small group. It's really just talking about the experience of building this thing, because there are definitely people at this conference that know a lot more about Couchbase than we do. So the thing that you could ask us about is like what we bumped into in this. And so ping us and ask questions if you have them. And then also definitely reach out to us on the Twitters, and then there's the CB Connect hashtag. All right. We'll start off with a bit of background. So Firefly Logic, we're small, and so we have to pick the technologies we work with pretty carefully. We have to be smart. And so a lot of it is about the right tool for the job, and we've picked a set of technologies that work really well for us. This is our core here. We've got Xamarin up here for our cross-platform mobile. We have Elixir and Erlang down at the bottom there for our server-side fault-tolerant work. And Couchbase here is a new one for us. This is part of our suite now. We'll be using this in our mobile apps going forward. We saw a lot of benefit in this project. And F#, just out of curiosity, how many people in here have written any F#? Okay, I will not talk about F#. Okay, so sort of the lead-in, it's like, it's like, it's just, this is the craziest thing in the world. You don't write a conference app, and you definitely don't do one with this sort of timeline on it. It's sort of a nutty thing to do. And at the beginning, we were like, we shouldn't do this. But we had worked with the Couchbase.
In the very beginning, we're like, yay, we get to do work with Couchbase guys. And they're like, oh, it's a conference app.
Sample.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so initially it was pitched as like, you're going to build some sort of sample app. And we're like, yay! And they said, the bad news. And so the real problem with it is in a sample app, there's a huge tug of war between showing off the features of the thing you're sampling, and then the fact that you all have this app on your phone. It's like, oh God, it's a total tug there. And it was good-natured back and forth. And there was, as we worked with the team, there were certain things that we were able to get out of. And so there are features. There was initially a version of Twitter that was going to be in the app because it made an awesome demo, but it would have been a huge project. And so we ended up with what we have. And then here's the sort of the it's never been said before slide. All right. So let's jump through. Out of curiosity, how many people were in Wayne's session just a minute ago? Okay, about 2/3. Okay, all right.
And most of you have the app and have used it and have experienced it, right? So we're going to take a quick tour of the app, but that's not just to show you the app. It's to kind of introduce the documents that we're using in the product. I'm sure maybe you've had some exposure to Sync Gateway and the concept so far, but I'm sure you're very familiar with documents, way more familiar than I am. I'm more of a SQL ORM kind of guy up until now. This NoSQL stuff is pretty new to me, but to you guys, I'm sure it's not. So what we're going to do is just run through the experience fairly quickly and just hit on the documents that are involved. The down arrow means we're syncing those things down from Couchbase down to the app. I guess you can probably guess what an up arrow means, and those are pretty much the only differentiator. So in this guy here, we have schedule and session and app config. The top part of the screen is where we're using schedule and session to work out what's coming up next. That's based on the schedule, and then the session is just the data in there. The app config is where we get our Twitter access token. We get the Twitter handle and the list that we're showing there. And that's all coming down from the server. We have our menu, we have a contact. When you create your profile, you're actually creating a contact. It just happens to be your contact, which makes it your profile in our system. That goes up to the server. We have two experiences on the menu. You saw that. There's a call to action right now because I don't have one. When I have one, we show the name. And now you're valid to start doing contact swapping with people. So we put that little button up there so you can get to the contact scanner. On the agenda, we have, again, schedule, session, But now we have something that you're in control of. You can mutate and control your agenda. Every time you select, deselect, we change the agenda. It goes up to the Couchbase server. It's kind of a theoretical thing. So I don't think Couchbase is doing anything with it. But we could be, planning overflow for rooms. We could just be working out which topics are generally taking a head count. There's all kinds of things you can do with that data. And every time you change it, we're changing it locally. If we're connected, it then goes up. If not, it just waits, and there's no harm. Our app is just working with that data locally. Full schedule, similar thing. We're showing everything at once, so you can go up and down, exactly the same stuff. We have a filter. There's nothing going on there. The filter's hard-coded. When we actually filter something, same stuff. So we're going to jump through that. On the session, we have session data, and we have speaker data. And again, we're mutating the agenda if we hit select up here. We have a rate session.
Have you all seen the sort of toggle there? Yeah.
Up here?
Yeah.
This thing? Yeah. So then you jump into rate session. So, there aren't too many documents in this thing. This app is just built up of these little, and each document is a document type, and it's a JSON document. Session ratings. This is one that I expect Couchbase will do something with. They'll be aggregating the numbers and working out which sessions are popular, giving feedback to your speakers and stuff. We have a conference survey. And on this guy, we go up. This one's a bit different. We go up to the cloud. I don't want to say the cloud. To the server on this one. And you can also come back and edit. So you can create and edit on this guy. On the conference survey, that's a one-time deal. You fill it in, and then it flips over to the T-shirt view, and that's it. You're done. We could just enforce that policy in the app if we wanted to. Well, we kind of do because we don't let you get back to it. But we also enforce it on the server side as well. Contacts. This is an interesting one. This is one of the more interesting experiences we have in the app. I think it's kind of obvious that you'd have a contact, and contacts are flowing down when we swap where your contact data is coming down, and that is a point of interest. We're not just flowing arbitrary contacts. That would be kind of scary, right? You put your contact in, and now everybody gets it. It's just like kind of up to the app to decide who sees it. That's not what we're doing.
Initially, my first pass on it was like, hey, why don't we just do that? And Ben looked at me, and it's like, it's like, okay, all right.
So the contacts, this thing here, contact exchange, what's that about? We'll get into that in a little bit in more detail, but essentially this thing is more of a command. Well, it's kind of a dual purpose thing. When it goes up to the server, it's a command telling the sync function to do something. But when it's locally here and we're in offline mode, it's actually got some cached data in it, as we'll see in a little bit. It's got a first name, last name, and it's got some GUIDs of users, so when it's on the server side, it can do things. And we'll get into that in a bit. And then we have regular contact. If you tap on one of those rows, you can see Len Prescorn, our Director of Business Development here. Scavenger Hunt, I think Wayne demoed this. Some of you may have seen this already. This guy has a similar concept to the contacts in the fact that there's two documents participating in each of these rows. This picture here is actually coming from the capture, but the question here is coming from, the text here is coming from the question. So it's kind of a merge going together to produce that final composite document. Mm-hmm. And then, actually, when we go to capture things, that's us with Bob, the CEO, last night. Yep. Where we obviously have two documents as well. We have the question and the answer. And I think the last thing in here is our profile. So as I said earlier, profile is just a contact, but the unique thing about it is it's my contact. And that goes up. So contacts are going up and down. So just to summarize, these are all the documents that we have in the system, the grand total of everything. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then one local.
And so there's, of course, the funny thing on contact, where it's sort of one less.
I didn't count it twice.
Oh, okay. All right.
Clever. So the things that are coming down are the kind of like those big things that you shouldn't be able to change: schedule, session, speaker, scavenger hunt item, app config. And then over here are the things that you're mutating: your agenda. You get it. These ones here probably will be used. These ones over here. Make sure your pictures are, rated G, PG-13. We don't know. Maybe a picture wall up somewhere at some point. So be careful with those. And then over here, we have a little local data that we're storing. some flags on things like what have we created your user? Have we installed something? Have we done the first time setup? You know, things like that are just like little flags that we're storing in this guy here. This guy will never go anywhere. It's just parked on the device.
And it's actually a different kind of document. It's not just a rule or anything keeping it from being pushed up. It's just a different type of document entirely. So
that's the intent, you know, and you know, this won't happen by itself. So that the you know, what makes this happen? You know, what makes some things go up, some things go down, and what who enforces the policy? That's the job of the sync gateway. And you know, I think the sync gateway is a whole ton of stuff. For us, we have a limited exposure to what the sync gateway does. But for us,
I was curious on the first bit. Does anyone have any questions about those documents right now, or any of the? Has anyone thought through like how did they do this? Is there anything that we missed before that? Okay, all right. I guess you're doing an awesome job then.
Yeah, it must be. That's the only conclusion you can draw from that. So in the sync gateway, you know, the core concepts that we concerned ourselves with are, we have this concept of channels. Have everybody seen this before? Channels, great. So we have the concept of channels. Channels are tags that we can put on users and documents. There's also a concept of a role as well, but we didn't get into that. We just stuck with users and documents. And if the same channel belongs to a particular user and a particular document, you're getting that document. Right? It's coming down to you, and you have the ability to push it back up. Is that right, Wayne? It's coming down, you can push it up. Good. So, I mean, those are really the three concepts that we're doing to do all of our routing. And then the sync function is a JavaScript function that lives up on the sync gateway, and it's one function, and its role is to provide validation, like access control, and it can assign, in it you can assign channels to users and channels to documents. And through those kind of simple gestures, you can kind of achieve some powerful outcomes.
So in the bit before, if anyone saw the little section I had in the keynote, the documents, this is the whole thing of saying, I'm just treating this thing as a local store. I don't have to be aware of the network. I don't have to be aware of anything. All this other stuff is handling that. This is how you're declaratively expressing the sort of the flow and the topology of where these things are going to pour. They're going to pour up. These are going to stay behind. These are going to come down to me. Yeah. And this is the beauty side of this thing. This is the stuff that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, there are just some simple concepts here, and you can start building stuff. In our app, we have the sync function. That's it. And everything is just going through Couch. We have one REST method, and that's to do our kind of like user creation, kind of a hack, really, going around the back door to get a user created for us. So, for example, given those things, how are public documents implemented? Well, the business requirement for a public document is, it must flow down to everyone, and on the flip side, you must have restricted edit permissions to it. I know our app won't let you edit a speaker's details or mess with the schedule, but if you were to crack it open, which is going to be open source soon, you could then get in there and start monkeying around with stuff, right? So how do we do that? So Couch created for us a simple REST API, kind of like very similar to the one that's actually in the API for Sync Gateway, that would allow us to publicly create a user. And here's the sample document that, what am I seeing here? Yeah, here's the sample document for the Sync Gateway user that was created. And again, we're talking about channels here. So you can see on this user, we have a channel called public right here. This is on my admin channels. Admin channels are the ones that you can't take them away from me. That's my admin channel. All channels down here is just kind of like product of admin channels and other things that have been given to me over the lifetime of the document. So you can see this guy's got public, so it has resolved to public, and he's got a couple of other ones over here that we'll kind of talk about later that get into context sharing. So that's our user. And in our sync function, which again is that JavaScript function that we have on the sync gateway, and every time a document is created, revised, or deleted, it runs through the sync function. So this little block of JavaScript right here is looking for all of the documents that we consider public and sticking them in the public channel. So you saw we have a user with the public channel. We have our JavaScript functions putting the documents in the public channel. Therefore, everyone can get to them, right? It also means at the moment that anyone can actually push it back up. So how do we take care of that? We address that. Let's have a look here. What have I got? I've gone too far. Oh, so as an outcome of this, when a session goes through, it gets a public channel. A channel called public, it's just a string, nothing special about it. It could be called anything. So in our sync function, we implement some validation logic. Wayne was saying in our session, it's like 30 lines of code. It's not very many. We kind of got a block of stuff for each one that just addresses the particular scenario that we're trying to accomplish. So it's the else down here that really implements checking for public documents. But what we've got up above is like, these are all the things that we allow people to write. But there are some caveats here. There are some business rules, and there are some, you've got to be the owner of that document if you want to write it, and you can't change your user ID. So there are some business rules. And then once we've fallen through all of the things we're allowed to write, I've just snipped it here so it fits on the page. We get down to the bottom, we're saying, well, if it's not one you're allowed to write, you have got to be an admin if you want to. Not an admin, you need to be a user called admin. That's what that means. So we create a user called admin. We keep it, so we can send updates to the session and things like that in our back pocket. So that's all outside the application right now, yeah? We're talking about documents, roles, sync functions. That's all outside the app. Inside the app, any questions about that before I move on to the next one? Yes, sir?
So where you throw an exception?
Yeah.
How does that get back? If I try to run with it and change the user ID,
Mm-hmm.
and it went out to the sync gateway from the mobile app,
Yeah.
through that exception, what would happen?
Nothing. You'll get a log. In our app, we get log. If you're running like in a debugger, you'll just see some error messages. But I think the replicators kind of eat them and don't cause a fuss. It just fails silently, I think. Okay. Is that right, Wayne?
Yeah, you can get to them in the end, but as an application as well.
Yes, sir.
What are you actually using for the user ID? I assumed it was the email, but they're not syncing across devices.
It's just a GUID.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Something very, very unique. Yeah, and like you say, that they are device specific. So or actually app specific. If you trash your app and you put it back in, yeah,
you got to start all over.
Yeah. With 4 weeks, we were kind of like, what can we cut? What don't we have to do? And Wayne, it was probably Wayne's idea to do this, and it was a good.
Just some feedback. The app hasn't crashed for me once yet today.
Hey, today. I thought you were going to say in the last 5 minutes. Nice. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. I was talking to some guys about their Android experience, and that's great to hear. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you. So inside the app, how do we bootstrap our Couch code? So for our particular app, we are creating our sync gateway user.
And this is, again, that one REST call out of
the one REST call. We can't call ourselves completely API free. And that's if needed. So on a happy path, you fire up your app, you have a network, our sync gateway's up, and boom, boom, done. We move on to the next step. We then install baseline data. And this is, I have another slide on this, but we install baseline data just to get you bootstrapped so you have something. If you are, I have another slide. And then we start our replicators. The replicators are things that push and pull data back and forth between Couchbase mobile.
We also show the code for that, right? I think we have a...
Yes, we do.
I think we do.
So on the baseline data, this is something that I've done before in conference apps, and you never feel good about it when you're doing it yourself because you're just always in the back of your mind. You don't want things to fail. But anyway, it is really important to have a good first launch experience. We did think about it. We were like, well, we don't have much time. If this is hard, we're going to punt on it. If this is hard, we're just going to let the data sink down.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't want to write every one of my experiences to make sure it looks good with no data. For one thing, Apple will review your app and turn the network off and just see what happens. So then I do have to make sure everything is good enough for them to pass you. So what we use it for is just to give us an early version of schedule, sessions, and speakers, so people have something to play with, have something to read. That's where the TBAs were in there. because we didn't know what the rooms were yet. But we did know who the speakers were, what their abstracts were, and things like that. And then when we do successfully do our first sync, things come down and overwrite. Yes, sir?
How do you get the data into the app
Yeah.
Yeah.
the first time?
Good question. Brian can tell you all about that.
Try to do the same.
So our process, our entire process is we received an Excel spreadsheet of just all this like blah. And so we took this data, massaged it a little bit. We have a console app, and this will be part of what gets pushed up to Couchbase Labs for the sample, the code for here. And so we have this little CLI tool. And so what it does is it reads out of this sort of flat file, of this delimited data, and it loads these structures up, and then it just creates documents inside of and this is not even a mobile app. This is just a console, a Mac app, so it's just a .NET console app, or Mono. And so it loads a series of documents off that data, and it just jumps out and says, I'm done. But the real thing it does right before that in our project is it creates it, and it's a peer of our iOS and our Android app, right? Inside of the folder structure of all these things together. And it says // iOS/resources. And what it's doing is it's building this database locally. And so underneath Couchbase-Lite is using SQLite for the local storage there, right? So this is that local database. You build up this SQLite database inside of the console app. And after we populate it with data using the Couchbase-Lite driver, we just copy that SQLite database as a resource into the Android app and into the iOS app. And they're just embedded resources. Mm-hmm. And so every time we want to regen this thing, we just run that CLI tool. And it just boing, boing, and it populates both of them. And so it's a really nice part of our build tool chain there. So we could rerun that thing over and over. And so when the app stands up, it's just the Android app, the iOS app, they look at it just as the same as if it had synced down or they'd created it locally, because it did come from Couchbase-Lite. But it was just an offline thing that was not in a mobile app.
And the revisions, the revision IDs on these documents, they're all starting off on revision, sequence 1, and there's a hash on them, and it's just a hash of their content. So it could have been created anywhere. It could have been originated on the, going direct for a REST, a curl, command going to the sync gateway, or it could have been anywhere, So it doesn't really, just because we created it there, it doesn't really, I don't believe it's different from creating it anywhere else. One of the other key things that Brian said, we had that little local database, that local document. In that local document is our GUID that we create. We stash that in there. And we also stash some other things the first time setup. That's something we do not want to be in this baseline database when we push it out. That's got to be uninitialized.
So we use the same code, the same model objects. So we're using basically a DDD sort of layout where we have aggregates and all this, and we have models, and we have MVVM after we get into the app side of it. So this command line interface just deals with the model objects. He just has these aggregates, and he's like loading these things up in memory and saving them. And it's the same code that we're sharing between this desktop console app that's populating the Couchbase-Lite database. It's the same code that's over there. So
one of the key things, though, if you're going to do this, you really want it to be. I was delighted when I found out, as simple as it kind of is, that Couchbase actually supported it. Yep. They had a method on their API to do this. Like we had to create the database. We had to go grab it. But once we grabbed it, the CB-Lite database,
but there's a slide for that.
The CB-Lite. No, I was going on another tangent.
Oh, okay.
You grabbed the CB-Lite database, but thank you. There is a method called replace database. So this is what our code looks like in here. When we run through, we make sure we've got a database that is existing. If we don't, we go grab it from resources, we get a stream, and we just call replace database.
One-liner there is the magic of a first run experience of pulling this from the canned.
So that sets us up a new Couchbase-Lite database, and then we just kind of grab existing again, just to kind of double check that it really worked, and then we're off and running. And if it didn't work, we'll just have an exception somewhere. It really should work. I wouldn't know what to do if it didn't, right?
Yeah.
So that was our baseline. So we got our user, we got our baseline data, and then we start replication. And replication is the thing that gets sync going. 15 minutes, thank you. And down here, we're using security. This is the same GUID username password to get us syncing back and forth. And now we're in a kind of like a steady state of we can do work with the app, and the app's replicating in the background, and they're handling all the online, offline situations and things like that. So let's do our live demo. If you guys have your apps, I kind of want to roll the dice here and just see what happens when several people do a thing.
I'm going to go ahead and jump out.
Jump out.
Yeah.
Go do it. It's a race.
All right. Let me bring up. Where is my preview? That's what it is.
Do, 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 do.
Sorry.
In your own time. We've only got 15 minutes.
All right.
And get on the contacts.
Yep, see it?
View contacts.
Well, look
Okay.
at that. I've been scanning a lot here, haven't I? And so,
All right. If you could scan that would be amazing. Stop messing with it, man.
Okay.
Are you online? I don't think you're online over here, Mr. Hunter. Are you got a network connection?
I thought I had a network connection.
This is on you, man. If it doesn't work, it's on you.
Sorry.
So has anyone got Len Prescorn as their contact back? Oh, we do have some. And has anybody got a thing where it says syncing? You have that.
Yeah.
Everybody has that.
Okay. So,
You got no service? Okay, good. That's good.
oh, we're in the meeting rooms. We're in a different. So I'm probably not fully connected.
It shouldn't stop them from working though.
Oh yeah, good point.
But it will stop you from refreshing, which is the thing we want
Yeah.
to see here.
Yeah. So.
Len's just this guy,
Is this guy,
He's your new best friend. Oh, did I just pop in there? Or was I already in there?
You're already there. So what am I doing wrong here, Benjamin?
I have no idea. Why don't you stop and start your emulator?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It might be that our replicators have shut down and
Yeah.
have a
Oh,
network.
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. So let me just rerun. Oh wow! Yeah.
Yay,
Okay.
lots of people.
Yeah. I should have.
No
done.
worries,
I
man.
ought have done it.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So for some of you guys who have networks who had the syncing ... did it go away? I don't know. It probably means that you guys don't have network connections right now either, I would imagine.
And so you might see a thing that says syncing below, and then how many people do
Hey,
actually?
Wayne just popped in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess.
Excellent. Well, we'll thank you so much for doing that, guys. That was awesome.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the syncing thing and explain syncing, not syncing, syncing thing. And how many minutes we got? 10 minutes? 7?
Okay, so we had
Six.
our scan.
Okay. So this is Len. Len is our director of business development, and he will not be calling you. I'm just messing around. Okay. So anyway, let's move on quickly because we're running out of time.
Okay.
So what happened there? What happened there is some channel magic in the sync function. So there is a two-step process to enable this sync magic to happen. When we create our, remember the concept though, the channel. If a document and a user have the same channel, that document's coming down, right? So when we create our profile, we create a new channel. Here we're just putting it into a string, and then we're giving I always get these mixed up. Give user access to its own channel. Okay, so we're giving the user access to its own channel. So if something were to change on the server, it would flow down. Probably not likely, but that's there. And then we're giving this document access to the channel. This is probably the most important part. So the document now has that channel on it. So we've got half the story done right now. We're kind of like ready to complete something when a user, so we got the document has the channel. When another user has that channel, that thing's going to flow down, right? So we have our contact exchange document. That's what gets created when we do a scan. And just have a look at what that is. We've got some cache data in here that we'll talk about in a minute. And then we have two user IDs. The local user ID is the guy who did the scan. The user ID, which is, I wish I'd put remote on this, but this guy is the remote participant. So when this goes up to the sync gateway and comes in, we can now just give the remote user access to the local user's contact channel and vice versa. So now we've completed the document channel user kind of relationship, and now they can flow down. So that's what happens if we're connected and everything's great. It flows down quickly. I did a great job of showing you what that looks like when it doesn't. So what happens?
The offline experience.
What's the offline experience
you
asked?
experienced?
I'm glad you asked that. So this is what it looks like. Some of you saw it. And this is probably misleading. I wish we hadn't chose syncing because it kind of makes you think that something's actively happening. And, you keep staring at it. Why isn't it working? Well, really you should say like pending or something other than syncing. But that's what happens. We dim it out. We give you the impression. Initially we thought, we didn't really think about it, but we were like, it would be really annoying to scan it, not know that you're offline, and just didn't work. So that's what we settled with. This guy, if you tap it, it won't do anything. Because what we're feeding off here is that the cached first and last name in that contact exchange document. So the contact exchange document does dual purpose. It's the command that tells the sync function to do the swap. It's also data on the local side to say, okay, well, we're going to use that for the time being. And we call that guy, we call these contacts, in our C#, there's a class called contact. We also have in our app a class called contact proxy, which inherits from that can just be a true peer of these guys in this list, but it's something we generate ourselves. And how do we do that? This one's a hard one. I couldn't show you code because my code is I'll be honest, it's messy. It's not pretty, you wouldn't understand it. So I'm just going to walk you through the pseudocode here. So we're using a view, and a view is like an index. It's a local view, and every time a document is, I think, touched in any way, views are recalculated, indexes are recalculated, and we're using a map reduce here, and in the documentation it goes don't feel bad if you're not using a reduce, they're very few and far between. Both of our views, both use reduces on them. I don't know if it's just because, I don't know, we like to make things hard. We like to be clever. But what our map does, it explicitly excludes the user's own contact, their own profile, because you don't want to see yourself in a list, or that's what we decided. Then the map then emits one or two rows. So you're going to get your contact document coming out, and if you have you're going to get a contact exchange. That's the one row scenario, and then if you sync down, you're also going to get a contact document. Not documents; they're really just kind of snippets of data. That's why I can't really show it to you because it's not very intuitive. But you'll get one or two rows. Then the reduce function combined with the live query. So on our live query, we can set our group level. And we say group level 1. So group level 1 says, the first column in our index, grab all those guys and stuff those into the reduce. So the reduce is going to get one row or two rows. And we favor the contact itself. So then the live query, the reduce function returns one row of data. If we have a contact, it's giving the contact's details. If we don't, then it's giving some details of the contact exchange. And then our live query, where we're actually handling the changes for each row, we're either retrieving the existing contact, or we're grabbing the existing exchange, contact exchange, and then creating a faux contact, this contact proxy, and stuffing that in the list so it can render. And then in the code, we're rendering different cell effects based on whether or not it's a contact or a contact proxy. And that's really the biggest reason for using the proxy. I need to differentiate between one that's real and one that's not. So that's the way we do it.
This is one that we probably need more of a blog post for instead of a slide, really, and just to walk people through that. And so that'll we'll likely be jumping in and doing that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, we have
Or
5 minutes.
Okay.
So we can rush through the last little bit.
Let's
here.
really rush, because I
Yeah.
want to have more time.
So this is
Should we just say, are there any burning questions? Because I'd much rather answer questions
Oh, yeah.
and talk about this if they have some. Yes, sir.
How do you deal with conflicts in terms of client side?
That's a very good question.
Wait, we have a slide for that.
Yeah, jump through. I mean,
Dun, dun.
we designed around conflicts in our app.
There are only a few
Wait.
concepts to master. No backend server code. We're the REST versus the sync, which comes down into
Keep going.
REST
Keep
is
going.
kind of nasty, and then keys with tags, example is, and we designed for conflict free. So we intentionally said, we're going to have this document, if I own it, no one else is touching it. If someone else owns it, I'm not touching it. And it turns out that it's not such a hard thing to pull off when you have documents.
Yeah, like the only one that goes up and down is the contact, and we have validation logic in there to say, you can only update your own. There's explicit in there, and if you try to update somebody else's or change it, we just we just chuck that back out the sync function. But in general,
you have user
yes.
login-based apps where
Oh, yeah.
multi-device and
Yeah. I haven't really. I'll be totally honest with you, because we made that choice, so we didn't have to deal with it, so we didn't have to read about it. But I know Wayne's right there. What I believe it happens is you get both revisions, and it's up to your app to decide what it wants to do. It's the app's decision. Wayne, I think you said maybe there was some automatic merging as well that's capable.
Automatic, it'll be so we use revision trees, and most active branch length is the default. So you look at a revision tree, and there's branching. The tip of the most active branch is going to win.
Yeah.
And then there's ways to get in there if you want to change that. That's longer than an answer right here. But you can very customized conflict resolution if you want.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I had a question, we can go offline with it, but it seems like when if you scan mine, the contact exchange that gets presented to you through the QR is a subset of my contact. I was just curious how that gets built and the way through this.
Oh yeah. QR codes. I found out Discovery can store a massive amount of data in them. We had to avoid the temptation to just stick the whole contact in there. We could have put the whole thing and just bypass the sync altogether. However, you wouldn't have got the delicious I update my name and it just flows straight through thing. You would just be getting a copy at that point. But yeah, it's just encoded into the QR data. We're taking the first and last name through. Am I answering your question right?
Yeah.
And then we just decode. I think it's like a comma delimited string. I think it might be arbitrary. It's up to me. I just pack it and then take it out again. Does that answer the question?
You get that off of your own contact record, right?
So the remote person is encoding their data into their QR code. Then when I scan it, that comes across and I just decode it. So I only use that actually for the little pop-up that says, well, I use it for the pop-up and the contact exchange, yeah. So the pop-up message says you scanned Ben Henderson's thing, and then we pack it into the contact exchange and then store that doc.
And if you're offline, you show it.
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks.
Yes?
For example, if I scan your contact and I get it on my phone, and then you change your email on the server.
Yep.
Yeah, so is it synchronized
Yes.
to get it on my phone?
Yes, yeah, it flows down, yeah. Yeah, and Zach Gramana, he did a live demo of that in our previous session. Yeah, absolutely works. Yeah, it's kind of neat.
And this is our last slide, so it's like
Yeah. So I mean, I think our takeaway is you saw how few concepts there are, right? It's not like this big API where you're going to be studying for nights and weekends, to learn around your. You can get this, and the concepts are so few that you can start doing it. And almost all of my development has been locally, local Couchbase server, local sync gateway, and they've got nice little web tools for doing everything. The concepts are so easy, it's so accessible. There's no reason not to give it a try if you're remotely interested. And the setup for the servers is really easy too, just so easy.
This is going to be a really fun project once it's up on GitHub for pull requests. This is going to be, I think, a nice community project where people can jump in, use this for their little conferences, use this for their big conferences, and do pull requests. It would, it's out there, it's available, it's easy, and all that. So So we'll be around the rest of the conference. So we'll probably be wearing. Well, this is all we packed in a suitcase. So fine.
You've all got the app. Remember to rate your session.
Rate your session.
Rate your session and rate the conference. So you can go get your free T-shirt as well when it's done. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you all so
Appreciate it.
much.